We finished developing the front end, the boilerplate code for login and dashboard pages. We finished initializing the backend, and the backend that we chose to initialize was Node.js. The front end that we chose to initialize was Angular, and the database has been set up as well. And the database that we chose to set up was MongoDB. And then we have also hooked up the database with our applications backend. So now we're going to set up the API endpoints. Is that an accurate statement, Anurag?
Yeah, well, that's correct.
Okay, so let's share that screen. Please take it away.
Yeah. So the
This
API
content
endpoints are
on,
used
by the
to,
way. Thank you so much for your patience on
yeah,
doing
no
this
worries,
on
Agar.
the fly. This can be pretty challenging. This is not something anyone can do. This is pretty awesome. You're a very talented guy.
Yeah, no worries. So the next thing we're going to do is like develop the API endpoints. API endpoints are used to like either send data to the database or like fetch data from the database. Like it's you can say the bridge which connects the front end with the back end. Like it's a bridge in between. So this is what we're going to develop now.
Is there, you know how we used a product called MongoDB for our database, Angular for our front end, and Node.js for our back end? Is there a product per se, like for APIs that we are going to use, or are there standardized products like that that we can use? Any thoughts there that you want to share from a product point of view for technical product managers who are watching this video?
No double. The APIs we have to set up, like for that we're using Express. Like Express not only sets up the server, it also helps. It's like also simplifies the process of setting up the API endpoints. So this is where Express comes in handy in terms of Node.js.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
So we'll be creating another, we can say another folder. We'll be naming as routes. Another routes. We can create another one API, another API. Let us create files such as like we want one API to handle login. So for that we can name is login.js. The another file we can name it as registration.js. Oh, sorry, I placed it outside the API. Register. Yes, then next file is like we can for the dashboard it should handle employees. So let us name it as employee.js. Okay, so let's first consider the registration API first.
So this is what hooks up the registration experience with the backend database.
Yes, that's correct.
Are we
So
going to actually allow the users to register? Is that part of
uh,
our product feature?
actually, we are going to do this from the Postman, which we'll be using for testing the APIs, whether it's working properly or like whether
I
it's
see.
working according to expectations or not. But then we have not covered them in the Angular part, like in the front end part, the
Right.
registration.
So the actual user experience doesn't have the registration experience in it, but we will somehow be able to validate that using API testing.
Yes, that's correct. So I've copied bunch of code from my previous project.
Yeah, Anurag, since it's not part of the front end user experience, if we skip it, is that going to break things for you?
Actually, we have to create at least one or two, yeah, I mean entries for the database. So this is why we have to
Got
place
it.
this. This is the importance of this part. So I've copied a bunch of things. So as you could see, like I've imported Express Decrypt, which I mentioned previously for hashing the what is it for hashing the password, and then the GWT web token for generating web token. The like we'd be receiving from like in the request body would be receiving a bunch of characters, like I mean bunch of values. One would be the username and the other is the password, which we'll be checking with our database. If it doesn't exist, we'll create a new one for I mean we'll create a new user data user credentials. And here is a step where we salt and hash the password before saving it to the database. And then this
That's
is the
fine. We
step.
don't need to go through line by line on the code.
Yeah, okay. So at the end, what we do is like after successful registration, we send back a token, which I have discussed previously. Let me open one part, jwt.io. So we could look upon here like how JWT tokens look like. So this is how JWT tokens look like. It is a bunch of like alphanumeric characters, and like it contains a header, which is nothing but it contains a type, what type of it is, what type of characters are they, and like algorithm that is used to encode this particular string. And then like the payload, it contains payload, like you can enter your name, like your ID, etc. So this is how it looks like, which we need to send upon successful registration or authentication back to the client side. Let me switch back to this one. Yeah, that's it. That's the registration part. And let me
So
quickly
this
do.
this code you have already developed somewhere else for the API endpoint connection. This is a
Yes,
connection code,
Dhaval.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct. And similarly for the login, the only difference with the login is like if we do not find any match with the existing database, we'll simply return like you have entered invalid credentials. And before that, what we do is like we compare, like we compare the password, like the hashed password. Like as we do not have access to the original one, we hash them again and then compare with the other one.
I'm with you so far. So this is good.
And again, this is a login per Dhaval. We have
Mm-hmm.
completed a registration API, and here and again the same flow happens. And at the end, upon successful login, we provide JWT token back.
So JWT, help me understand. Like, give me some context and history of JWT. Who made it? Is that open source and all that stuff?
Yes, Dhaval. As far as open source is concerned, it is like open source. We can use them freely, like we do not have to make any payments for that. And like you can consider like earlier cookies and all used to be there for authentication part, but now you can say like those things are obsolete and like everywhere it's a standard. I mean industry wise, like this is being used widely. JWT token for authentication and all.
Got it. So is that like so JWT token in the early days we were using cookies to authenticate users login
I mean to
experience.
store the authentication
Yeah.
data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's done through JWT tokens. JWT tokens are open source or they are free and you can Auth0 is the name of the company who made it. Is that an accurate statement? Auth0?
No, Dhaval.
Okay,
Uh,
got it.
I'm not sure exactly. We need to like look into it little, and then like we'll let you know after some time.
Okay, sounds good. We'll have links to open source libraries below the
Hmm.
video, so you can always take a look at that as well.
Yeah, that's right. And then the last thing is like we have to create APIs for the employee in here. Like there will be three types of API. One would be to retrieve the data, I mean the employee data, whichever whatever is available in the database. For that we'll be using a GET request. And then the
So
second
let me
one would
just
be.
quickly give a quick overview of API operations here while we have it before we get
Mhm.
into the details of API. Let me just share my
Okay,
screen real quick.
sure.
So so for those who haven't really watched our API videos, I want to give you a quick context. APIs are interface that defines interactions between software components, and it's basically a data transfer mechanism. So you need an API gateway between users or front-end applications and the databases. There are four main operations that API has, which is get, which is it reads from the database. Post is when you create something to the database. Delete is obviously delete, and then update is when you edit something. So that's the API, and Anurag, it's all yours now.
Yeah, in the slide, in the last slide, it was you have there was the crude operations, no? So this is what I was mentioning about initially. Like these are the basic operations for the API, like create, read, update, and like delete. These are the basic operations.
Got it.
Yeah. So the first one is like the get request, which we
You may want to
used
share
to.
your screen, Anurag.
Sorry, I just
Yeah,
forgot to say the
no
mistake.
worries.
Is it visible now?
Yeah, I can see it now. So that's the
Okay.
get. I don't want to go through each and every line of the code because we
Yeah,
are
yeah. I'll
already
simply
like this is gonna
just
be a
give a
long video.
brief, like how many routes are there, like, and what are they used for.
Yeah,
I minimize this part. Like as you could see, in a high level, there are three routes. One is this one, which is to retrieve the employee data available in the database, and then as a response, send all the data back to the client. And then second is like the client sends in the updated or like the new employee data. The processing gets done in here, and then it gets updated in the database, and then upon successful completion a message gets sent to the client back, like it has like successfully the successfully the employee was added, or like successfully the employee details have been updated, and along with it the newly updated employee details. This is the second one, and the third one is like delete employee. This is like we just send the employee ID from the client side, and then it finds and deletes the employee from the database. That's what it does.
got it.
So we have done this part. The next part
No,
is
no,
like,
you're not including update in this.
pardon?
Is there an update?
Yes, I already included this in the second one only. Like either the new and update, it would be done in
Got
the
it.
same single API endpoint. So
Okay,
what it will do is like it will check if the data, like the data that has been sent from the client, whether it will check from the ID whether it is existing or not. If it is existing, it will update the existing record, and like if it is not there, then it will create a new record. This is how it works.
got it.
And now we have created the points. Now we have to define them in the server JS. As I have mentioned previously, like it is sort of like table of contents, which where you have to define everything. So this is where I have defined API slash login, and this is a API for login, and then for register, and then for the employee.